Hi, my name is Blair Dean. I'm the drafting teacher in Wilmington, North Carolina at Hoggard High School. This is my 13th year in public education, 8 in this content area. I do teach all three subjects, so drafting 1, architecture 2 and 3, and engineering 2 and 3. And I am a nationally board certified teacher as well as cluster lead for the county. And I have a passion for taking best practices and making sure that we include them and put them into our career and tech classes. Today we are going to be talking about project-based learning and some ways to incorporate it into our specific classes, as well as kind of what it is overall. So first, I want to make sure we go over what it is in general. So who is this for? Well, first of all, it is 100% for sure for us. Our classes are perfect for project-based learning. All classes are, but ours are sometimes a little bit easier even to integrate project-based stuff. What is it? Project-based learning is a teaching method in which students learn by actively engaging in real-world, personally meaningful projects. So that's the technical definition, but we're going to really delve into what does it look like, what does it really mean for us in drafting. So it is engaging, it's real world, and it is meaningful to the individual. These do last a period of time. So it's usually not like a 1 to 2 day kind of thing. It's, a week up to an entire semester. I know I do a giant project with my architecture students that pretty much lasts the entire semester and covers almost every single piece of the blueprint within that one project. They're going to respond to or investigate an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. We're going to talk more about what that question kind of looks like. I'll give you some information on where to find more information about making sure that those are, the really good question or a good problem or challenge. But they are responding to something that is a real type of problem or challenge. And they demonstrate knowledge and skills by creating a public product or presentation for an actual audience. So at the end of it, they do have some type of product or presentation that they can share. It contains and frames our curriculum and our learning. So it's not just like we learn and then we do this project at the end, but as you're doing the project, you are covering specific curriculums or framing the curriculum. It does require higher order thinking skills. So, it uses that critical thinking and problem solving, usually some type of collaboration and various forms of communication. So they're, writing, drawing, speaking, emails, all kinds of different forms of communication. More on how to make it not just a project in a bit. So why do we do this? Well, it develops a deeper content knowledge. So it takes the knowledge that we're giving them and connects it. Fosters critical thinking, encourages creativity and student expression, which will link our students to, to the actual content knowledge and again, develop that deeper connection. Provide an opportunity for collaboration, strengthens communication skills of all forms, energizes the classroom culture. It gives us something different than just a normal, traditional teacher-led classroom. It develops 21st century and real-world job skills. Hey, that's us. That's CTE. Promotes lifelong learners because you are facilitating their learning, not necessarily teaching. You're not giving them the answers. They're having to find answers to problems and learning the content along the way. It allows for accommodations pretty easily, which is another plus. So some more whys. Our national or North Carolina professional teaching standards are definitely something that we're graded on. And project-based learning is really included in almost all of our teaching standards. So standard one, that you lead in the classroom. Standard two, you're providing an environment that's positive. You're embracing diversity, adapt your teaching to benefit the students with special needs. That's where it can easily be accommodated as you go along. You're treating students as individuals. They are working collaboratively with family and significant adults in their lives. I do a lot of this as the product piece, and then we'll talk about that. You know the content that you teach, you recognize the interconnectedness with other disciplines, and then make it relevant to students. Standard four pretty much covers everything on that one. Utilizing technology, making instruction appropriate, developing critical thinking and problem solving skills, variety of instructional methods, teams, pretty much the entire fourth standard. It hits standard five, in which you analyze student learning, and standard six, where you contribute to the academic success of students. So when do we do this? But what this isn't is, like I said, it's not just a whole bunch of lectures and activities and quizzes along the way and then a project at the end. Instead, you launch the project at the beginning, and through the project, as you are completing parts and pieces, you are covering content along the way through activities, lectures, and you have some type of benchmark and reflection between, kind of where you're covering things. The benchmark, really, when most people think of a benchmark, they're really thinking, okay, so like a standardized test. But benchmarks don't have to be that. They can be design review meetings. They can be, self-reflections of students, peer reflections of students, and then self-reflections of students. So this is, it's kind of a whole all along the way, and then culminating at the end with the event or presentation, so that they can actually demonstrate and show the deeper learning and show their skills and what they learned. And then at the end, of course, still reflection. So how are we going to do this? Well, upfront planning, that's the biggest thing. So it does take some planning up front. But you also make sure you include room for flexibility to adapt your plans. So I know the first time I did some project-based learning stuff, it was things didn't turn out exactly like I wanted them to, and that's okay. You can be flexible with what the product maybe looks like. Some semesters with my Architecture 3 students, they do a model home project, and sometimes we have lots of time to spend on foundation. Sometimes we're squished, so that it looks different from semester to semester. Define the learning goals. So you want to make sure they understand what it is that they're going to be showing and showcasing at the end of this. And those should be essential standards or indicator driven. So we really want to connect those to our blueprint. And then define what success will look like with clear expectations. So making sure at the end they know what it is that they have to accomplish, with clear expectations. So giving them things like a rubric and clear directives, a scope and sequence of when they're expected to have certain parts of the project completed by, schedules, that sort of thing. There is a resource online. The Buck Institute for Education has this whole website, giant website, that is about project-based PBL works, project-based learning works. The website is great. It's got tons of wonderful information on it. It's not specific just to drafting or CTE though, so you really have to pull and pick through it. I am going to go over some of their main ideals that have to do with project-based learning, and then we're going to talk specifically about some ideas for our classes. So the first thing that PBL Works does is they outline the essential project design. So what do you need to include in your project in order for it to really function appropriately? And they've come up with 7 different areas. Those key learning goals in the middle, the key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. That was kind of what I talked about before. So what it is that they're learning, they know what it is that they're showing, and then they understand how to successfully show their skills. All right, so first is the challenge or the problem or the question. And sometimes this is that upfront planning that really is going to take maybe a lot of time to really pose a good one, I guess. But it's important to have a good one. So the project is framed by a meaningful problem to be solved or a question to be answered at the appropriate level of challenge. So most of us are secondary. So a driving question. There is lots and lots of research resources out there on how to pose an appropriate driving question, and that's really what we want these to be. We want it to have a purpose and a goal in mind, that they understand kind of how to solve the problem or indicators inside of the question or the problem that help guide them or drive them in the way that we want them to go. They're open-ended, so there's not one correct answer. So when now some of your activities along the way can absolutely have one correct answer, but the overall project should not. The overall project should have room for lots of ways to solve, and then culminating and essential questions. So you can use some of these that are now available in our new updated the curriculum guides that are coming out or just came out. I don't know exactly if they'll be out by summer conference when I'm recording this or not, but they are there, and you can use those culminating or essential questions to help figure out your driving question or your problem. Sustained inquiry. So this is that it doesn't just happen, right away, but they're going to need an extended amount of time to go through the project, to find resources, to apply the information, to pose questions on their own. This is different than just an activity. However, it can be easily kind of broken up and thought of as like a series of activities. So maybe the overall project is, this big giant thing, but then you slowly break up according to essential standards or indicators, a series of activities that cover those, and then you do a part and piece of the project, some more activities, a part and piece of the project, some more activities, and so on. And so that's an easy way to think of how to kind of break it all up. Authenticity. Well, we just want them to understand why it's important. This is, really a driving force that we should be using in our classrooms every day. Why are you learning what you're learning? What impact is this going to have? What are you going to see at the end of this and know now and be able to show that, hey, I've learned this and this is important for me to know because. Student voice and choice. So along the way, somewhere in the project, there has to be some room for the students to choose and make decisions. Now, this can start at the very beginning. They can help even pose the challenging question if you want to. I do that with my engineering 3 students when they're doing their big design project. They actually have to come up with their own problem to solve. Whereas engineering 2, I pose the problems for them or allow them to choose from some. But this should be driven through parameters, though. So we want to make sure we are allowing them choice, but as long as they are actually solving the problem and they're actually learning along the way and they're actually going to have a product that displays, what it is that we want them to. Reflection. Students and teachers should reflect on their learning all the way through. It's a big part of project-based learning. Self-assessment it really is a key piece to it as well. So it's ongoing. It should happen often. When you're coming up with your sequence, the sequence of activities or the sequence of your project along the way, make sure you're building in peer assessment, self-assessment, teacher assessment, and those sort of things multiple times along the project. Critique and revision. So I actually, I think this really probably should come before the reflection. or maybe it comes, reflections before, during, and after the critique and revisions. But give students an opportunity to get feedback and then improve their process or their product. So we don't want to just say, okay, you didn't do great with that, and then that's it, and we move on and they have to show it. But we really want them to learn how to take critiques and be able to do and give revisions, whether that is a self critique, a peer critique, or a teacher critique, and then allow for revisions. That's easily done with those clear expectations I was talking about. So them knowing, how and where and what it is it's supposed to look like, they can go back, if they have a rubric 3 or 4 times along the project, have them go specifically to that rubric that they're going to be judged at, or assessed with on the end, not judged, on the at the end, and then start, do they check off, okay, well, what do I have so far? Oh, here's some things I don't have yet. So critiques and revisions are very important. And then the public product. So in project-based learning, this is like the culminating end thing. You should have them share it. This is a great way to link home. This is a great way to link other stakeholders, other classes, cross-curricular within CTE or outside. So some ways to do that. I do a lot of project showcases. At the very end where they have to set up and come up with maybe a website and a, a board, or some type of showcase to show what it is that they are doing. Website or marketing material, they can share via an email with parents. So this doesn't have to be, so one of my things is by drafting one, students do a portfolio where they kind of prove through their work and through their portfolio that they can do everything that's on the blueprint. So they share that with their parents at the end. It's kind of like, hey, mom and dad, look at this. So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. It doesn't have to be a giant showcase that you're doing. If it's a smaller project, it could just be sharing with their parents through email. You can present to another class or other stakeholders. I've had, people from the community, from garden clubs, come in when I had students do a project on revamping an area on campus. And then they ended up giving us some money to try, and we actually got the project completed. So that was pretty cool. So invite people in that aren't just school related, but also invite, school boards, invite anybody that, might come and say, hey, cool. And then portfolios can just be a way to do a public product. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that they stand in front of people and share it, but just that it is available to do that. And usually they should share it with someone, even if it's just the class. The public part of this, the public product, something that people see at the end, is definitely one of my favorite parts of project-based learning. Because it drives student performance. When they know that they're going to have to share this, they're going to put more into it, and they'll also, in turn, find more pride within their work at the end. PBL Works has a lot of more information, really in-depth information about each of these areas, if you would like to go and look at that. So if you really want to look at how, some more reflection, like what does that mean by reflection, you can go and find some more information on that, or more information on how to pose your problem or your question. Now, PBL Works also outlines our best teaching practices. So we've got the project, we've got parts and pieces to the project, but then what do we do as teachers to make sure and that it goes the way that we want it to? They also have 7 project-based teaching practices. So 7 best practices for us. You can see the learning goals are still right there in the middle because they are important to both pieces. So again, knowing the key knowledge, understanding, and success skills. So design and plan. I was talking about this before, making sure you have clear expectations. So create and adapt a project specific to our content, our context, and our students. And it starts at the beginning, right? So you go ahead and say, hey, at the end of this unit, this is what we're going to do. You're going to do parts and pieces of it along the way as we cover content. So making sure you design and plan is one of the best ways to make sure this is successful. Align to standards. So making sure you are really picking specific essential standards or indicators that this is, um, what it is that they're learning about. So we're making sure we're using our blueprint and using our curriculum guides to align to our standards. Building a culture, explicitly and implicitly. So that's straight up telling them, or it just kind of happens. Promote student independence and growth, open-ended inquiry, team spirit, attention to quality. So that's what I was talking about. I really think that product at the end of them knowing that helps build the culture. But this doesn't happen automatically in your class, so don't expect it maybe the first project. But even the first couple times I did real, true project-based learning, I did it with smaller projects in engineering too, my very first year. And like the first project was a flop. um, the second project got a little bit more, the third, the fourth. Now by year 8, and I've been doing this 8 years, that many students, some of the projects, I mean, they have really come a long way, because they see them happen in the other classes as they're going. Or I also have, past projects and past things I can share and show students. So they are always trying to up it and pay a little more attention to their quality. Manage activities. So work with your students to organize. So I like to give my students what I call design schedules. So they have checkpoints or deadlines along the way. And I give them resources, or specific activities that they have to complete before they can complete the next part of the project. um, and making sure that their products are reflected upon, revised, and then move on to the next piece. So again, that's the clear expectations. Again, rubrics, directives, scope, and sequence schedules. Scaffold student learning. You can do a variety of lessons and strategies to reach all of your students. So it might be that you have some students that learn one way, some students that learn another way. Maybe you have a variety of activities that cover the objective, just in different ways, or a way, 3 different ways to learn the content before they move on to the project piece for that kind of section or in the scope. Um, so students can pick for that. Along the way, individual progress meetings are important. Variety is the spice of the classroom, so giving that student choice. And then you can really individualize along the way as well. So again, not something that happens overnight. Sometimes it is, here's just the one activity, this is what we're all doing. Sometimes it's, hey, here's 2 or 3 different things you can do to learn the knowledge that we're then going to apply. We will then review, we will then revise, and then move on to the next part of the project. Assess student learning, formative and summative, always in there and seeing what they're doing, paying attention to what they're doing, making sure they are on the right track with what's going on, that they are understanding content, and all of those sort of things. It does include self and peer assessment. Engage and coach. So this, I think, goes with assessing. You know, make sure you are formatively looking at what they're doing constantly and making sure if they need redirection, they can get it. If they need encouragement, they need celebration, anything like that. And that's that flexibility that I mentioned. So being able to, all right, you don't look like you got this. We might need to go back with you and look into a different way. And really some students, and that's that, scaffolding of student learning. Some students will go through the project much faster and maybe could add additional things onto a project. whereas some students might take longer to get through just the project or just parts and pieces of the project. So they'll need a little bit more engagement and coaching through those. Again, much more information on PBL Works about the best teaching practices and ways to do these things if you would like to find out more about that. So, best teaching practices, but for our classes. So, what are some examples of projects or problems that we can do? And then at the end, who are they sharing with? So in drafting one, geometry in the real world is a project that I actually do where the students have in order to review our geometry terms, they are finding real world examples of, a hexagon in the real world, taking a picture of it and or finding a Google image, highlighting it and putting it together in a slideshow. And they do share this with home. They send their, project at the end of it home. This usually takes, about a week. So it's not a giant project, it's a smaller project. And in the past, I've talked about, wait, we should be sharing these with math classes, maybe, even if we share it with a lower level math class or a middle school math class. We could do that. Bridge design, you can do that manually or in CAD. You could share that with math classes, physics classes, or science Olympiad. So don't think about just, sharing with people outside of the classroom, but you can share with people within CTE, outside of CTE, clubs, anything like that. Design your own block or create multiple drawing types. So that's, when I say design your own block, so it's like a tiny blocked object. So they get to pick and design a block. I have done this with the big Duplo Legos. If a student's really having a hard time visualizing something, I'll give them the Duplo Legos for this part. Some students don't even need that. They can just create it on their own. And then they have to represent that block in all the different drawing ways. So you have to do a single view, a multi-view, an isometric, a pictorial, and all the different ways. And then when they do the multi-view and they do it in AutoCAD, they actually, represent it on a global scale. So they have to include dual dimensioning on it. We could then send those to a 3D printer or manufacturer and ask for feedback. We haven't done that. I came up with that while we were putting this together, so we might try that. Or we might send those drawings to another school, so cross county. So I'll send the drawing maybe to Ashley High School here in town and say, hey, can you print this for us? And we just want to see if our drawing, you were able to actually print it and it come back correctly. So floor plans, so again, this is all drafting one. So floor plans and interior design layout using CAD blocks. So you can have them draw a floor plan that you give them. They can design their own little quick floor plan, maybe a one-room efficiency apartment or something. And then they can place blocks inside of that, and you could share that with your interior design classes. Or they could actually do a classroom for someone. Maybe your library needs to be moved around, or there's a teacher who doesn't know the best way to rearrange their classroom. They could do that for the teacher. Scale the football field or baseball field onto different size sheets of paper. This is one of the ways that I cover one of those hard to reach indicators and ideas for students sometimes is, so we take the football field, which is a pretty standard measurement, and then they have a size E, a size D, a size C, B, and A sheets of paper, and they have to scale the football field onto each of those. And I do try and sometimes do this usually around spring spirit week, so we can hang them in the hallway, which is, and then they have to design a little logo in the middle of the field as well. Design a piece of furniture and share with your interior design classes or your construction classes. Maybe they could build it. So that's something drafting one. Some engineering examples. All projects can include the digital model, physical models, or working drawings. So they could just quickly design something. It's a smaller project. Here's the digital model. Oh, a bigger project, they do the digital and a physical model. Oh, a really big project, they're going to do the digital, physical, and the working drawings to go along with it, and then present that. Some ideas that people gave us from around the state and some of my own are cooking utensils. You can share with your foods or culinary classes. I've done cookie cutters in the past. We actually did a giant cross-curricular project with those one year. My students designed them. We sent them to, designed them with the foods classes. No, sorry, designed them with the culinary classes. Then my students did the drawings for them and the STL files, and we sent those to a different high school. They printed them, then sent them back to us. Our culinary classes then made the cookies. Then we had a Adobe class that jumped on, and they made recipe and thank you cards to go with them. And then we packaged them up and gave them to the school board. So, if they pull lots of people in, that makes it even more of a real world type problem, real world type project for them to have. Game pieces. So this was a couple years ago. Somebody shared this at summer conference where they made a checkerboard or a chessboard, and then they designed the game pieces. Maybe you could do that project with or share with Game Art Design if you have that. Playground equipment designed for ADA, you can share with your SDA program or possible construction. We done ornaments, so we designed ornaments, and they had to be, and within the problem, right? So it wasn't just, hey, design an ornament, but for that one, it was sub-assemblies. So the ornament had to have, certain parts and pieces that went within a sub-assembly, and then the sub-assembly had to make a full assembly. So share it with a local nursing home, or 3D print them and give them to someone. Bike accessory, share your ideas with a local organization or a local bike shop. Grill utensils, again, your foods and culinary classes. Medical devices, you could share with your nursing classes. So these are, you pose the problem, you look at what objectives or indicators are going to be covered within it, and then who are you sharing it with, or who are you including? Or allow them to come up with their own. Uh, Architecture examples. So campus site beautification. That is, like I said, we did this a couple years ago. You could work with, if your school has landscape design, or your local community college does, or your construction classes, and you invite your administration in, or a local garden club. Tiny home design. You can share with your construction or your local contractors association. Residential home design project for a specific client. So, that's like a fake client you can share with your construction students. You can share with the local contractors association. Model home project, you can share again with that, or a commercial project design. Any of these, you can share with, really, you can invite any stakeholders in, invite the school board, invite administration, invite parents as well. All right. I just want to say thank you for your time today. Specific thank you to David Robinson, um, Elna Benbow, and Meg Buchanan, because they did share some project ideas with me that were included in today's presentation. If you have any more questions specifically about project-based learning or any of the resources I shared today, you can visit my website. There's a link there for that, and I will share this presentation with you as well. Or you can email me at blair.dean@nhcs.net. Here are some other specific resources just on project-based learning, if you wanted to check those out. And I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time now for you to explore and create. So it's not just about, hey, here's a whole bunch of information, but summer conference is about us learning and reflecting on our own, and then trying to create. So I want you to spend some time now to try and start with one. So pick a course, pick maybe a course that you're either really great at and you know a ton of content about it, or pick maybe not your strongest course. Most of us have either an engineering or architecture background, not both. So maybe pick one you don't have a lot of things to cover, or pick an essential standard or an indicators that you know you need to cover or you didn't perform well on, and kind of work backwards. So pick your essential standards. That's where your problem or your question is going to come from. It doesn't have to be just one essential standard. It can cover more than one, but that's where you're really going to come up with that problem or that question. And then pick a product. What is it that they're going to create? What are they going to share? And then your indicators are really going to drive your activities and your assessments along the way. So those are going to be kind of what takes you through to the end problem. All right. Happy creation. And again, if you have any more questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you for your time.